Welcome, fellow gamers, to another advanced character build for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, where we break down the character builds used by veteran players who leverage their experience and knowledge of the game to create some of the most unique combination of skills, spells, and tactics for successful survivability into the higher levels. We give you a level-by-level overview of the skills, spells, and abilities, how to use them effectively, and then we deep dive into the play style and combat tactics used to make this build successful. If you'd like to support the channel, you can acquire a full PDF version of today's build to 20th level by visiting our shop at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. Link is in the description. And as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get started. Today's build is the Hand Crossbow Fighter Ranger Multiclass, an uncommon marriage that generates a well-rounded ranged fighter that specializes at burning through mobs while avoiding direct melee conflict. Probably one of the best kept secrets to the Archer build for the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. This build relies on multiple attacks per round to increase your chances for critical hits while combining the Hunter's Mark and Battlemaster superiority maneuvers to enhance damage, or more importantly, to turn failed attack rolls into successes. We leverage a bit of the Artificer class to remove the need for carrying and managing bolts while boosting our hit and damage modifiers further. We stir in massive amounts of the fighter class to keep those extra attacks high as we level. It's a simple but devastating multi-class, multi-target, damage-dealing build that cannot be rivaled by other archery combinations for sheer damage per round without sacrificing incredible burst damage capability. A ranged damage dealer leveraging Ranger, Fighter, and Artificer classes for up to 6 attacks per round by level 17, with 2 attacks per round starting at level 1. Utilizing the Sharpshooter feat for plus 10 to our normal damage modifiers every single attack with enough skills and spells to augment the attack roll penalty. By level 4, we're the consummate DPS build for our party, with 2 attacks per round, 3 if we use Action Surge, with all hits adding a plus 10 modifier to our normal output. We can attack at max range for the hand crossbow with no penalty. We're unaffected by partial 3/4 covered objects and have no disadvantage to mobs that make it into melee range. We never have to load our crossbow, freeing us to wield a shield, and we require no ammunition. We combine Crossbow Expert and Sharpshooter feats with the hand crossbow for range damage per round that can't be beat by other archery builds, save variations on this build that rely on stealth. A future guide for sure, so be sure to keep an eye on the channel for this guide. We use Hunter's Mark to boost damage output and Fog Cloud or Zephyr Strike for escaping bad melee situations. With the Ranger's Horde Break ability, we boost those extra attacks. With low resource management, high IC, maneuvers that allow us to position without fear of opportunity attacks, and constant movement about the battlefield, we rain down damage while still having the utility to knock mobs prone or disarm them. So how do we build this multi-shot wonder? Well, let's dive right in. So let's begin as always with the pros and cons for this build. Now we always assume the point buy system for uniformity in our guides, so keep that in mind. Choosing the variant human to get that first crossbow expert feat early is key. Though other racial choices would probably garner us a bit better stats, the build would suffer in the early game, taking longer to come online. Now we dip our 2 bonus statistic points into dexterity and wisdom. This means that strength and charisma become dump stats for us, with the bare minimum of 13 for intelligence and wisdom, which will be required for multiclassing into the Ranger and Artificer classes later. Now, low strength is going to reduce our armor choices, and as you can see, athletics, deception, and persuasion will not be our strong suits. With low wisdom and being variant human, we will be susceptible to control-like spells. Now, because of the shallow level dips into the Ranger and Artificer classes, our spell slot pool throughout our career will be small. But we will leverage our superiority maneuvers far more often, with most spell slots reserved for Hunter's Mark and Zephyr Strike. This also means our spell choices are somewhat limited, as any bonus action spell would compete with our second attack, and any spell relying on a DC save would be admittedly low with this build. Constantly using Sharpshooter special attack means we are facing a -5 penalty to the hit roll each attack. But we offset this by using superiority maneuvers that only need to be spent after you make the roll, saving you from wasting that resource unnecessarily. Use of the hand crossbow in melee range and at max distance, no penalties. 2 attacks per round starting at level 1, with regular progression of multiple attacks as you level to keep your critical chances high and your damage scalable throughout is a definitive pro. One of the quickest routes to 6 attacks per round of any build. Being able to use the hand crossbow with a shield, no penalties at melee range, and the few restrictions on armor being offset with a high dex means we still have tank-like armor class, and we keep at range distance most of the fight. With no penalty at melee or max range, we can target any mob on the battlefield and use our surroundings to further give us cover, truly making us a hard target. Resource management for this build falls down to the number of superiority dice, crossbow bolts, and to a lesser extent spell slots. By multi-classing, we boost our spell slots a bit, but the low levels we achieve in Ranger and Artificer classes keeps this low. Keeping a spell slot available for Zephyr Strike or Fog Cloud to get out of tight spots will be key, while trying to reserve the other slots for Hunter's Mark, which will improve your damage output considerably. The superiority dice per short rest will be your main consideration here, especially in lower levels to help offset the negative to hit penalty of the Sharpshooter feat, which means more often than not, these should be saved for the superiority maneuver, Precision Shot. Once your to-hit bonus gains from ability score improvements and some levels, you can start using some of the more utility-based maneuvers. Now, crossbow bolts may or may not be an issue, and with this build, it is keenly tied to when you take your dip into the Artificer or Ranger classes. Though our guide goes into more detail, just note that if your DM is being a stickler about how many bolts you can carry, and it's an issue, then around level 6, you're probably going to prioritize the Artificer class over the Ranger. Now, you'll do fine pushing the first Ranger levels back to, say, 8th through 11th. Our level-by-level guide assumes this path, but if your DM doesn't care about keeping track of the number of bolts you have or lets you lug around 100, then move the Ranger levels forward. Even at first level, if you have multiple combats in a single session and you're throwing out 2 bolt shots around, you're going to use a lot, and it only gets worse as you level. Looking at the main tactics for this build, it becomes very obvious that it centers around the combination of the Crossbow Expert and Sharpshooter feats. Starting at level 1, we gain the ability to attack with the hand crossbow, and then use our bonus action to attack again with it. We ignore the loading attribute, which allows us to don a shield in our offhand to help boost our armor class. We are not at disadvantage in melee range and can effectively use our crossbow without penalty, while the Sharpshooter feat allows us to attack at the max range of our hand crossbow of 120 feet, also without disadvantage. We ignore half and 3/4 cover our targets, but the key feature here is allowing us to permanently increase our damage modifier by +10. Now, though it comes with a -5 penalty to hit, this is offset by our dexterity modifier, our proficiency bonus, the Artificer's repeating shot infusion, the archery fighting style. By 3rd level, we're leveraging Superiority Maneuver's Precision Shot of the Battlemaster archetype to augment bad rolls, and later we add Martial Adept just to increase our superiority dice pool. Key abilities such as Hordebreaker from the Hunter's Prey skill of the Ranger class allows us opportunities for additional attacks, while Action Surge for burst damage opportunities. The repeating shot infusion from the Artificer class completely removes our ability to maintain ammunition, with no shortage of utility from the other Battlemaster maneuvers. We throw in the Hunter's Mark spell to boost our damage by an additional d6 per hit, with some utility spells for battlefield movement. This is a very easy build to play, with low resource management, tank-like armor cast, and high damage. Higher levels with this build is a lot like the lower levels. The tactics are similar, but the number of attacks is greater. With additional attacks coming at levels 1, 7, 10, and 17, the addition of Artificer's repeating infusion shot by level 6, and Ranger's Hunter Mark spell at level 10, damage output scales very well with this design. When you consider Action Surge and Horde Breaker, there's no shortage of burst damage when the situation calls for it. With the fighter's superiority maneuvers, the ranger's spells, and the artificer's infusions, we create a simple character with lots of utility, high battlefield movement, with lots of critical hit chances. This build is tailored for the player who prefers a maintenance-free, low resource management with consistent, dependable damage per round character. By mid-levels, you're throwing up Hunter's Mark using bonus actions only to move it between mobs you kill, using Longstrider, Zephyr Strike, and Fog Cloud to move about unhindered and without the fear of opportunity attacks, freeing your healer to concentrate on other players. We hope you've enjoyed this overview of the Ultimate Archer for Dungeons & Dragons. You can support the channel by grabbing the PDF version of any Uncommon Arcanas build with more in-depth detail to 20th level. Links are in the description. They are a great companion to use as you level your own characters. If you have an idea for a build, want us to supercharge it, let us know. And as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any advanced character builds for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in the future. And we will see you next time.